Now we start this webinar during our Nordic Summer Camp for Peace and Climate Justice. It's a bit of a historic opportunity that we have people present from Russia, from St. Petersburg, Oleg Bodrov, and we have also Soumya Dutta, who is also an environmentalist as Bodrov, and he's from Friends of the Earth, India, but at the moment doing a heroic thing because he's actually in Australia, which means it's in the middle of the night. Thirdly, we have Marianne Laxin from Women's International League of Peace and Freedom, and a pacifist and feminist from Finland. And finally, a short presentation of a Spanish initiative by Jordi. As you have understood, we have also received some videos and PowerPoint things, and we hope this will be able to present as well. So let's start. The whole idea is that we believe in the necessity of cooperation between the West and East, North and South, for this goal of peaceful coexistence, for common security, and the possibility to divert money from the military spending to climate justice. And hopefully to create some kind of activities in different parts of the world for this common goal. Now let's start with Oleg Bodrov. You can present yourself, but you want also to show this video. So please say some words and we show the video then.
Okay. Dear friends, I greet you from the Russian shore of the Baltic Sea. Thanks, Tor Björk, for the invitation to be with you now. It is not so often when Russian people have chance to discuss face-to-face with our partners in other countries, and I like it very much. Thank you. And I'd like to begin my presentation from the video. May I ask you to start video?
Okay, this will take a few seconds.
Very soon.
Dear friends, my name is Oleg Bodrov, and the chairman of the Public Council of the South Coast of the Gulf of Finland. I stay now on the south coast of the Gulf of Finland, 35 kilometers from Finland, is the thing behind of me on this direction. The line of the confrontation between NATO and Russia is 70 kilometers from Finland. And behind of me, the largest difference conflict is the cluster in the Baltic Sea region. There are located 18 nuclear and radioactive facilities. And at the same time, from the both sides of the line of the confrontation between Russia and NATO, we have a process of the militarization. Dozens of new military bases are being created in all countries around the Baltic Sea. The risk of military conflict is increasing. What will happen if military operations begin using modern, not nuclear weapons? This is the question. I think you know that the number of victims of bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki 70 years after the bombing reached 450,000. At the same time, and 20 years after Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident, the additional deaths, like a result of the radioactive contamination, increased about 1 million people in Europe, Asia, Africa, and North America. But the victims of accidents of the nuclear power plant were not only residents of Ukraine, were located at Chernobyl nuclear power plant, but also residents of the entire northern hemisphere of our planet. Thus, one destroyed reactor kill more than 2 times as many people as 2 atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bombing fields, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, are rebuilt on the same site, on the same place. And in this city live now more than 500,000 people. And in the same time, it will never be possible to live near Chernobyl nuclear power plant because this territory is contaminated with long-lived radionuclides. I'm looking to the nuclear map of the Baltic Sea region. You can see how many nuclear reactors we have around the Baltic Sea. Just now, there are a total of 17 operating reactors here. Next to them are storage facilities for the spent fuel rods from this nuclear power plant. This is super toxic high radioactive waste, which is equivalent at least 200 nuclear reactors. I think you understand that in fact the entire Baltic region is mined with nuclear reactors. In the event of military conflict, it is impossible to give guarantee for this nuclear power plant, these nuclear reactors or storage facilities will be not destroyed. It will happen. It will be collapse of the lifestyle of 90 million people in 9 countries around the Baltic Sea region, including Russia. I think about what can we, civil society in the Baltic region, do. What is our mission in this case? Politicians from NATO countries and Russia have made it difficult for civil society representatives to cooperate. The borders between our countries are closed. Other barriers to communications have been created. The famous speech Albert Einstein once expressed an interesting idea. This idea, in the context of the current political situation, can be interpreted as follows. If a crisis has arisen in the system, then it is impossible to find a way out of this crisis if the same stakeholders who created this crisis act. I think that civil society in the Baltic region countries need to unite to form a common strategy for overcoming this crisis. We have a common motivation, the preservation of our common home, the Baltic region. It is our common habitat. Thus, making the decision of launch military operation in the Baltic region are located thousands of kilometers away from our region in Washington and Moscow. But in the event of the destruction of nuclear facilities in the Baltic, we, 90 million citizens of 9 countries, would become victims. The time has come for us to unite representatives of civil society of the Baltic region countries in order to develop a Baltic view of the development of our region. So we need to prepare special strategy or special statement about our vision and present our strategy for the civil society in our country. Some ideas, what can we do now? I think it's reasonable to organize international Baltic Sea regional conference on the new base I think reasonable if we will invite to this conference the people from the peace movement, environmental movement, human rights organizations, as well as the NGO, which is protect the traditional style of life indigenous people. I think we need a common platform for the protection our style of life in our Baltic region. Another idea, we organized in this year, in the end of July, the Moving on the Bike Environmental Conference. We will go from this place close to the biggest cluster to Vyborg. It will be about 200 kilometers. 25 years ago, we organized a similar bike tour, and it was from here to Helsinki, about 600 kilometers. But now it is not possible. I invite you, colleagues from the Baltic region, to initiate a similar bike tour for the peace, for the protection environment and sustainable development and cooperation in the Baltic Sea region. Let's be together for the protection for our common region. And let's take our hands together, and I hope we will win. Thank you. Dear colleagues, this is the largest nuclear cluster in the Baltic Sea region. There are located 18 nuclear and radioactive facilities. And it is not only unique nuclear cluster in the Baltic Sea region. We have more than 17 nuclear reactors which is operate now. And what will happen if we'll start the military confrontation between Russia and NATO? The line of the confrontation is only 70 kilometers from here. And who will give guarantee that this nuclear facility will be not destroyed? It will happen. It will collapse of the style of life all for the whole Baltic Sea region. We need to think about it. The Finland 100 kilometers from here in this direction. Estonia 70 kilometers on this direction. And you are, colleagues, about 700 kilometers in Sweden in this direction. But we are part of the one ecological region, Baltic Sea region. And we need to protect our common home, our common habitat. Let's be together, and politicians divide us, but we are representatives of the civil society, must be together, and we have very deep motivation to be together, because we are part of our common Baltic Sea region.
Few words I'd like to add a little bit. I need a demonstration screen, my screen.
Okay.
Just a moment. And few words I'd like to add a little bit. Colleagues, this is the nuclear map of the Baltic region. There are 17 nuclear reactors which is operate now, and about 200 reactors, I mean the spent fuel rods from the 200 reactors in the Baltic Sea region. It is huge risk if we will start military operation in our region. And I think there are many plutonium-239, and if this radioactive element will come to the nature, it will be total collapse, because the half-life time 24,000 years, and it is extremely toxic element. And I think we need to be together, and it is very important now, because the politicians want to divide us, but we are part of the unique and union common habitat Baltic region. Thank you so much. I'm finished.
Oh, okay. I don't see that we have Australia with us. There might be some technical problems. It's a bit far away, and yeah, it's not always so easy to arrange technical things when you are abroad on travel. We had confirmation from Soumya Dutta, who is a global climate justice activist, and we met recently at the World Social Forum in Kathmandu in Nepal. He has been walking along the Himalayas, and oh, here he is. Wow. Hello, Soumya. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
I was just talking about your famous walk along the Himalaya, where you see in Nepal, the shocking figures, how many of the water mills that has been closed. And now we give the voice to you. First, we have heard Oleg Bodrov from Russia talking about the need for cooperation on issues like nuclear safety and so on. And now you are in Australia, is that so?
Yes, I am in Australia, so it's past midnight, but I'm okay.
Okay, so please present yourself and make a contribution.
Thank you very much. So let me start with a little redefinition or reimagining of what warfare and what kind of warfares different societies are actually waging on other parts of human society and other parts of non-human society. One of the most very clear, obvious, and which is most explicit war that we talk about is basically the use of militaries to suppress, to conquer, to kill. So this is being talked about very widely for a fairly long time. And let's just focus a very little time on that, and then I'll move on to the other kind of warfares which we don't talk much. And if we are talking about disarmament, welfare, and cooperation, then we have to take care of and we have to take cognition and then address of three different kind of warfares that basically humankind, but mostly the societies of the North have actually waged on the whole world for the last couple of centuries at least and more. So the kind of warfare that we talk mostly about is, as I said, is by militaries using conventional and nuclear weapons, armaments, about which we are talking about disarmament. And we know that the militaries of the world, they don't actually publish what is their environmental impact and what is specifically their impact on climate change in terms of the carbon footprint. Very crude and incomplete estimations are that roughly about 5.5 gigatons of emissions comes from worldwide what we call the war machinery or the military operations. But these do not include most of their exercises, their trainings, and their associated manufacturing for supply and weapon manufacturing and weapon supplies. So actually, there are rough estimates made by which are not confirmed by any official figures, but nearly 20% of the global impact on climate, that is the emissions, comes from all these associated operations plus the military's own workings. So that's a major impact on the climate systems, which we'll have to address. And this is always a blind spot, because if you have looked into the UNFCCC negotiations till the COP28 in the last 29 years, you'll see this has never been clearly mentioned in any of the official negotiating text, though there are side events, etc., which have been trying to address this. This has never come into mainstream discussions, and any kind of party negotiation, that is the country governments of the parties of the UN conventions. So this has been largely absent. But if you look at what are the expenditures on that, then also it turns out that along with the carbon emissions, roughly around 2.5% of the global GDP also goes into military expenditure. That is the minimum expenditure that is explicit to the military, not including its lot of associated manufacturing, supply chain, etc. But later, when we are talking about disarmament, we very clearly understand that including nuclear and non-nuclear, that is conventional warfare, conventional arms, we must talk about disarmament, we must talk about cooperation, and that also means very clearly powering down the entire military industrial infrastructure, which probably is the most powerful mechanism institution in the world today, which dictate most of the government working in most countries. But that's only one part of the war or armament that we generally know or understand about. When we talk about cooperation, welfare, then we must also talk about other kind of warfare. The second kind of warfare I will request you to focus on is the kind of economic and financial warfare that particularly the northern societies have waged in the last more than 100 years, but increasingly after the Second World War, or starting from around the Second World War, through the Bretton Woods institutions, the global financial mechanisms, they have actually controlled the global financial and economic infrastructure, including what kind of transactions countries can make, societies can make, and what kind of financial mechanisms they will adopt, and how the global economies will exchange between themselves. And by keeping this totally in their control, they have manipulated the system in a way by which, and I'm mentioning this specially because today's webinar is also focusing on not only disarmament, but welfare and cooperation. This system of global financial and economic warfare by the societies of the northern countries, the global north, has manipulated this so that the welfare of the global south, majority of the global south, is not possible without actually causing a major climate and ecological disaster. Because the kind of control over resources, both financial and material resources are controlled largely through financial and military resources that we have already seen the countries of the north, particularly over the last 5 decades, the US, but before that, the European colonial powers, that they have waged not only the military wars, but the financial wars, financial and economic wars, that the global south, if they now want to provide welfare to a minimum level to their citizens, it's impossible to do that without causing a major ecological crisis. And that we are seeing today. And increasingly, as many societies in the global south, which are trying to do a little bit of welfare coming up from a very low level, the blame of the blame of the destabilizing the climate system and pollution is increasingly heaped upon them. So that's the second kind of warfare that is going on, which is for centuries, at least for the last couple of centuries, but as I am saying, from 1944 onwards, particularly from the Bretton Woods understanding and the system that have been waged, and that is not being talked about much. This is a very important aspect of the disarmament and welfare aspect, because without addressing the financial and economic warfare that the societies of the global north, the countries of the global north have been waging, you cannot address the military, and these two are intermingled. These two are clearly interlinked. So we have to address both these two, and along with this, the third kind of warfare that I would like to draw your attention to is the war on nature that humanity as a whole, but largely the societies and countries which are affluent, which have much more resource, much more income and wealth, that they have waged on nature. And that's what the core of the climate crisis is. It's not only a climate crisis, it's also the ecological crisis, the biodiversity, the species extinction crisis, the global air pollution crisis. All of this has roots in the global warfare that the societies which are rich, which have accumulated wealth, over the last 2 centuries at a very, very fast rate, accelerating pace, that they have waged on nature, the war they have waged on nature by indiscriminate destruction, by indiscriminate and unlimited extraction, and building on that. So, and by denying any other society. We know very well how many wars in the 20th century, because we are now in the 21st century, but we know very well how many wars in Latin America, in Africa, and many others have been instituted and instigated through for the control of the resources, and also in the Asian continent for the oil. You know very well where the wars have been instigated to exercise control over the resources of energy, that is oil, particularly oil. So these three, I'll like to point out that without taking all of these three warfares and all of these interlinkages, just by talking about the military wars, you will never be able to address the questions of disarmament, welfare, and cooperation. Because even if hypothetically, which is not possible, but even if hypothetically, we are able to at one point, by some mechanism, to bring the countries of the world, like which the UN was supposed to, the United Nations was supposed to do, to countries of the world to bring in one table and agree that there will be no military warfares. Even then, the economic and financial warfare is continuing, and the moment the countries which are at a much lower level of economic and ecological development, the moment they try to get up to a reasonable level, the warfare, that the economic and financial warfare will cause them to come into conflict with two things. One, the exclusive control of this system by the global north. Second, the very critical condition of the Earth's ecological systems, including the climate crisis. And that's very well known. So the third war, which is the war on nature, is actually interlinked with both of this. So in a sense, when we talk about disarmament, we'll have to talk about not only eliminating weapons of war that we understand in a conventional sense, that is both nuclear and non-nuclear, but also the weapons of war, of economic and financial war, that is the total control of global financial and economic system by the global north, particularly of their institutions, which are partly Bretton Woods institutions, but connected with that many others, including the OECD's other instruments. And the third one will have to be addressed in conjunction with the first two. The third one is, again, to repeat, the war on nature, that humanity as a whole, but mostly the rich societies have waged over the last couple of centuries. So if we are looking at cooperation, we have to first dismantle the control and monitoring systems, basically by the rich societies, and then institute and evolve a new system where there is parity, there is equity, there is fairness and justice. And then based on that, there's a new system of governance which comes into the world, which should address that any society that is coming up in the welfare index, and there are multiple indexes that we define welfare by, like HDI, IHDI, and there can be even better ones. The SDGs are there, part of them can be included in that. I'll not go into that because that's a completely another debate. But a welfare, as we understand this, a society which enjoys the benefits of welfare has to also experience the freedoms of economic and finance systems, apart from the freedom from the fear of being oppressed by the war machinery, the military-industrial complex. And for this to happen, the global military-industrial complex has to be disempowered. And that's a major task. That's not going to happen just by NGOs working, but we have to engage with much larger players on this. So, then only when these two are addressed, we will be able to address the war on nature, which is going on for the last couple of centuries. So for climate justice, the war on nature is the fundamental concept, but that war on nature, which has created this climate crisis today, and I'll remind this, that for many in the southern countries like India, Bangladesh, like you have been probably seeing the news, that India, large parts of India are going through over the last 1.5 months, an extreme heat wave, an extreme water crisis. So thousands of people are actually dying. Thousands of working people are actually dying out of this. And these have been predicted climate change impacts over the last couple of decades. So if we have to address this, if you have to go into a society which tackles the climate crisis, along with tackling the challenge of uplifting a large part of the humanity which lives in the global south to a reasonable level of welfare and security. And we have to shift our focus from maximizing individual and maximizing gains of individuals and societies to minimizing the risk to maximum number of societies and human beings. So unless we change our focus from maximizing gain to minimizing risk to all, we'll also not be able to address any of this. And I'll end by saying this, repeating this, that when we, let me repeat this three and then end, because there might be questions about many of these. As I am saying, this warfare is not just by armament, but three different kind of warfares. First, the warfares of both nuclear and non-nuclear arms and weapons, which is conventional and which we have a very long history. Because if you look at our history, all of us know that our history has been written and has gone on for a very long time, or nearly 6,000 years of kings and emperors winning and expanding their empires, expanding their kingdom. And the only means of expanding or the most important means of expanding and continuing their kingdoms and empires had been warfares. So this is one long history that we had. And we have to also start, if we want to change this whole culture of understanding humanity's progress in terms of what is most important, then it will also address what we actually teach to our children, what our society holds as important aspects of humanity. Most of our history, if you look at, and I know there are many counter attempt to that, but most of our history glorifies expansions of countries, expansion of empires, expansion of kingdoms, establishment of kingdoms and empires. So that focus has to completely shift. And this shift has to also start from our education system all across the world, which is not yet very visible. The second, we have to link these three different kind of warfares in one global framework. We cannot look wars of weapons, which is a very conventional sense, including the nuclear ones, we cannot, as I'm saying, we cannot disconnect this from the economic and financial warfare, and cannot disconnect this from the war on nature that has happened. And when I'm saying war on nature, it is not only the climate crisis, though the climate crisis is at the peak, but also the war, that is the crisis that is happening with species extinction and biodiversity, the crisis that is happening with water, and the crisis that is happening with our environmental pollution, critical environmental pollution. As we all know, the last 2023 study of 9 planetary boundaries has shown that 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries are either breached or about to be breached. So let me end here and request all of you that please try to see the warfare, the disarmament needs, the needs of the welfare of societies and cooperation in terms of interlinkages of these three different kinds of warfares. Because unless we end all three, there is very little possibility that societies who are oppressive, who are oppressing, and who are waging the wars will be able to cooperate to the societies with the societies in the South who are oppressed and who are denied minimal welfare by the control of financial and economic mechanism and institutions, and their shifting of blames and shifting of responsibilities to them to address the environmental crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya. Unfortunately, Tord and Rolf disappeared as they lost connection, but they're online and about to join the meeting.
Okay, we have had two excellent contributions. One about the need for cooperation to address both kind of nuclear threats from warfare and from emissions and the problems with nuclear power, and the need to protect our common Baltic Sea. We also got an impression from the Global South, showing the necessity of addressing simultaneously both military means of oppression and economic. This is a good starting point for Marianne Laxin as our final speaker. And now we will hope that the technical things will work. So Marianne have sent us both a PowerPoint presentation, and then she will say some things, and then there's a YouTube. Could you maybe shortly just say some words before we put on the PowerPoint, please?
Okay, thank you. I must say that after this Samoya's introduction, I have a feeling that I can't answer all the questions he put on, but it's interesting to think about them and to try to solve. And the only thing I can, just as a reaction on what he said, that the word is difficult, but I think that the best thing we can do is that to try to work where we are working, because we can't solve the problems in like a whole. So please let us continue as we have done and try to cooperate. That I think will be the best. But some short things about myself. I have been active in the peace organizations and peace work since the 60s. So I'm really old. Probably I have been interested in this because I was born in the year 1945, when we had the peace in Europe after the Second World War. So maybe that has put something on me. But then now I'm still active. I'm a member of the board in the Finnish Peace Union and vice chair. And as you know, Peace Union is a member organization also in the International Peace Bureau. And then I joined Women's International League for Peace and Freedom in the 80s and have been active there. We have a small section in Finland. I'm a member of the board in Finland, and also I'm a convener of the WILF International's standing committee for the constitution. So I have different, let's say, I can't say work because I don't get any pay for it, but I have different things to do in different organizations. But first of all, I want to reflect a little bit about the situation when we say this is a discussion between north and south, south and north, north and east, south and east. The problem now is that the east is Oleg Bodrov. As you know, we have, or I hope you know, that the Finnish Peace Union and also our other big peace organization in Finland had very good contacts with different organizations and persons in Russia before the war started, or before Russia started the war in Ukraine. And after that, many of our contacts has been labeled as foreign agents. So they don't have the possibility to have contacts with us. And I know many of my personal friends and acquaintances who have went out of Russia, so they are living in other countries. So in that aspect, I must say that it is really difficult to say that we have some sort of contact to the east. If the east is Russia, then it's another thing. If the east is a little bit broader, when we can say that we have. But also before the war, in our contacts around the Baltic Sea, we saw that the Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they were not so interested to start peace organizations, because they had the burden from the Soviet Union time that peace organizations that was the same as almost the Kreml, and they followed their policy. So our contacts to peace organizations is more or less non-existent also to the Baltic countries. But other organizations they have, as Oleg probably knows about these environmental organizations, they are very, very active, and also these social organizations. Okay, that's for that. Then some short information about the situation, political situation in Finland, which is almost like the political situation in Sweden, because we have a right-wing government. In Finland, we have the ultra right-wing party within the government. In Sweden, they have the ultra right-wing party outside the government. By they need the ultra wing party to the government for to make decisions in the parliament. And in the last days, they have now decided in the parliament to take a law where they worsen the condition of the situation for migrants, and that just happened yesterday on Friday. So, and they are continuing the same policy. So this is not a good thing at all. The other thing is that up till now, the state or the government has given support to different organizations, peace organizations, international organizations, and now this government has stopped the all. So we don't have any help from the government anymore in these peace organizations or in international organizations who are working together with international cooperation. So that is the situation just now. And then to that, the government also had decided to reduce the development aid to countries in the south. So I think I believe that the Swedes have done the same, but I'm not so sure. But in Finland they have done this. Okay, let's then go to the things we should. I'm active in this WILP, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and I will present some of the working areas WILP is working with. And now, if you could put the presentation on, I will be happy.
I'll see to that. Hold on.
Yeah.
There we have it.
There we have it. Okay. First of all, the WILP vision, which was accepted at the Congress for 2 years ago, and that shows also that this old women's peace organization now also in a way has tried to understand the challenges we have with the environmental and climate problems. So we say a world of permanent peace built on feminist foundations of freedom, justice, non-violence, human rights, and equality for all, where people, the planet, and all its other inhabitants coexist and flourish in harmony. So in a way, we have this in our vision, but then it's another thing naturally to put it into practice. Okay, next. slide, please. I have put on 4 of our working areas. First is the human rights. The human rights area came in 1915 when this organization was founded in the middle of the First World War. There were over 1,000 of women coming from the countries which were in war with each other and founded this peace organization. Okay, next one. So this is about disarmament and to what maybe it's important to say here is to say that militarism is a destructive and oppressive system that diverts society's resources towards weapons and war, and a leading contributor to armed conflicts and violence in countries and communities worldwide. Through our expertise in disarmament, WILP is working to transform mindsets around militarism and promote new feminist perspectives, offering true peace and security, including a world free from weapons. Okay, next one. And then this agenda, women, peace and security, which is very important in WILP work. As you know, in October 2000, feminist activists and civil society, including WILP, paved the way for the adoption of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. But the situation is that despite many guides and frameworks to advance gender equality, in women, peace and security resolutions adopted by the UN Security Council and countless commitments by UN member states, we still live in a world where women are deeply and disproportionately impacted by rampant armed conflict and instability. Gender perspectives and women's voices, particularly from feminist civil society, are vital for shaping peace agreements that respond to the roots of conflict and violence and are equipped to build peaceful societies. And then the next one. And this is about ecological justice. The ecological crisis we face is a result of capitalism, militarism, patriarchy, and colonialism. It's almost the same as the former introducer had talked, but now we put this patriarchy also in it, and you said, did it say anything about it? This crisis poses very real and existential threats to life and to the planet as we know it. Militarism and military activity and conflict are both significant drivers of the ecological crisis. They fuel violence in the name of security, deepen inequalities, and continue to destroy the environment. No living being on the planet is left untouched by militarism, which exerts its influence on decision makers in our societies, in our communities, in our schools, and on our homes. Okay, that was the. Then I want to show you a video which has been done after our. I think it was last year after our Congress 22, where we tried to say why there is no climate justice without demilitarization. So if you please put on this, and then it's finito for me. Thank you.
It's important to raise awareness on the links between the ecological crisis and militarism, because at the root of the climate crisis are forms of structural violence.
The two are inextricably linked. One does not cause the other, but one certainly adds fuel to the other because it is a well-known fact that the US military emits more carbon than 140 countries.
Sweden has arms trade, producing weapons, affecting the environment. We have the Swedish military exercises, affecting our water reserves, our lakes, and our surrounding seas, and also taking up huge land areas. The Swedish military is also a big user of fossil fuels, but they are exempt from reporting all of their emissions to the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, which gives them kind of a free card.
No country since the Kyoto Agreement has to declare any of their military emissions. So all the climate, targets and the carbon and everything else are a nonsense because the military can just do as much as they want, and it's way over 6% probably of global emissions, which is vast and increasing.
Siamo a Most, uno dei ponti che durante il bombardamento e l'aggressione della NATO nel 99 fu abbattuto. L'inquinamento che ne susseguì causò molti danni soprattutto alla popolazione ma anche alla fauna. A causa di questo male è l'uranio impoverito che fu utilizzato durante l'aggressione della NATO. La Serbia oggi è il paese in Europa con il più alto tasso di malati per tumori, leucemie, e per quanto riguarda i bambini purtroppo il record è quello addirittura mondiale.
In the province that I come from, due to the effects of climate change, there have been a shift from agriculture to artisanal mining, which is mostly done illegally, and it is also harming the environment. And in this sector, the use of violence against women and girls is very high, and there's also the use of small arms and weapons. In these communities, conflict over resources are actually affecting also women and girls. Their safety is at risk.
It needs Indigenous peoples' outputs, especially Indigenous women. For example, just today, a lawsuit was filed with a women's-led group called Protehile Tekzen, led by Chamorro women, where they held the U.S. Air Force accountable for contamination in northern Guam.
Over the past year, Will Sweden has put extra focus on the link between militarism and environmental degradation and climate change. Local members have conducted local activism with study circles, field trips, local political advocacy, debates, and a 2-week bike trip for peace to put focus on climate change and nuclear weapons.
For me, women and a feminist approach to everything that we do in terms of how we look at our economies, how we actually look at our conflict resolutions are really important, but women have to be absolutely in there to do that.
If we ignore the role that militarism plays in contributing to this crisis, then we will never achieve climate justice nor peace. It's important to raise awareness on the links between the ecological crisis and militarism, because at the root of the climate crisis are forms of structural violence.
The two are inextricably linked. One does not cause the other, but one certainly adds fuel to the other because it is a well-known fact that the US military emits more carbon than 140 countries.
Sweden has arms trade, producing weapons, affecting the environment. We have the Swedish military exercises, affecting our water reserves, our lakes, and our surrounding seas, and also taking up huge land areas. The Swedish military is also a big user of fossil fuels, but they are exempt from reporting all of their emissions to the Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, which gives them kind of a free card.
No country since the Kyoto Agreement has to declare any of their military emissions. So all the climate, targets and the carbon and everything else are a nonsense because the military can just do as much as they want, and it's way over 6% probably of global emissions, which is vast and increasing.
Siamo a Most, uno dei ponti che durante il bombardamento e l'aggressione della NATO nel 99 fu abbattuto. L'inquinamento che ne susseguì causò molti danni soprattutto alla popolazione ma anche alla fauna. A causa di questo male è l'uranio impoverito che fu utilizzato durante l'aggressione della NATO. La Serbia oggi è il paese in Europa con il più alto tasso di malati per tumori, leucemie, e per quanto riguarda i bambini purtroppo il record è quello addirittura mondiale.
In the province that I come from, due to the effects of climate change, there have been a shift from agriculture to artisanal mining, which is mostly done illegally, and it is also harming the environment. And in this sector, the use of violence against women and girls is very high, and there's also the use of small arms and weapons. In these communities, conflict over resources are actually affecting also women and girls. Their safety is at risk.
It needs Indigenous people's outputs, especially Indigenous women. For example, just today, a lawsuit was filed with a women's-led group called Protehilitekzen, led by Chamorro women, where they held the U.S. Air Force accountable for contamination in northern Guam.
Over the past year, WILP Sweden has put extra focus on the link between militarism and environmental degradation in climate change. Local members have conducted local activism with study circles, field trips, local political advocacy, debates, and a 2-week bike trip for peace to put focus on climate change and nuclear weapons.
For me, women and a feminist approach to everything that we do in terms of how we look at our economies, how we actually look at our conflict resolutions are really important, but women have to be absolutely in there. To do that,
If we ignore the role that militarism plays in contributing to this crisis, then we will never achieve climate justice nor peace.
Thank you very much for these interesting contributions. I don't see that Jordi from Spain has joined us. Is some Jordi in the list or not? Then I can shortly say something about this new initiative, which is addressing the need of opposing militarization in Europe and the need for disarmament, so there will be resources for social welfare, for equality, and for saving the environment. One of the interesting things with this statement, which I hope somehow we can send out, is that it's every kind of organization have signed it. Trade unions, peasant organizations, environmental organizations, peace organizations, solidarity organizations, tenants unions, etc. 287 organizations in Spain, which shows that this kind of discussion we have here is a question of rising interest. It's also so that we will organize the first global week of action for peace and climate justice, the 21st of September to the 28th of September. And there's several organizations behind this, not only the International Peace Bureau mentioned, War Beyond War, War Assistance International, and several others. So there is a growing interest in this. But now we have some time left, and maybe the speakers would like to comment each other somehow. Mm-hmm. And people from in the Zoom can also put questions in the chat, and I ask people here, of course, in the room also to prepare some questions after that. You maybe have some comments to each other. I don't know if our friend Somya Dutta is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who would you like to comment first, Oleg?
Oleg will have to unmute.
I don't want to give a comments, but one of the idea which I presented in my presentation may be reasonable to establish a new cooperation, not only between environmental organization, but also peace organization, human rights organizations, organizations who protect the traditional style of life, indigenous people. I think we have crisis which is destroy many factors of civil life, and reasonable if we will stimulate cooperation between different NGOs. It is one aspect. Another one, reasonable if we will orient on the cooperation in one ecological region. I spoke about Baltic Sea region, but maybe reasonable to develop this idea to other region, for example, Black Sea region or another ecological regions. Thank you.
Yeah, and we see this growing interest, and I think it was interesting that you also addressed the issue of traditional life, the need to connect to the realities where we live in. We see this in Sweden. We will address tomorrow also a growing movement in Sweden called Protect the Food, the need to grow things together. There has been a very important reaction to the waking up of the reality during the pandemic crisis, when suddenly people understood that we have to start to build confidence in each other. And there was a call for planting potatoes. And there's only some 280 municipalities in Sweden. And this call was followed by common action for planting potatoes in 150 municipalities. And this shows that we have to start to work in different ways, where we see how to engage in our local communities, doing things together. And I would say that was also very present in the presentation we had here from Rojava, which is maybe known in some places, the need to start things where you are, connecting the issue of both traditional ways of preserving your local community, while at the same time addressing the need of equal powership, gender, etc. So it's fully possible to move both in terms of more traditional way of doing things, how you take care of your soil, and at the same time look at the need for gender justice. And we also got an inspiring all the work which is going on here in this region to support Palestine, also in many times in very direct ways. And we could see it in this famous song about how to we are planting the soil, we are picking the lemons, we are crushing the olives, this famous song in Swedish, which is in many TikTok videos presented together with doing Palestinian dishes and bakeries. This is, I think, the necessity of connecting to culture issues. And it seemed like also Somya was addressing this in a little bit way, where we should not think of this change necessarily only in terms of that everybody should copy the kind of welfare model we have here in our countries. Rather, we should try to listen to, as you said, indigenous people and other ways of looking at what is important in life, a good life.
Marianne.
Yeah, so Marianne, you maybe have some comments.
not a comment. I want to ask Oleg about your proposal to have different NGOs, NGO cooperation. As I spoke, I said the problems we have with the contacts to Russia. Can you comment on this, because you are one of the few we have contact with, and the others has disappeared because they are these foreign agents, or then they live somewhere else. And one example more, that when in Russia they had these was it yearly now I don't know what in English, but yearly meetings with the indigenous people. Then nobody from Finland came there, just because of this Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Oleg, if you can unmute.
Thank you, Mariana. I totally agree with you. In the same time, I think, of course, we haven't, for example, I haven't any chance to influence to the Russian policy in Ukraine. And at the same time, my wife, 50% Ukrainian, and have many friends there. And the idea is to use other positive way. For example, we organize exhibition of the photo exhibition, what we like, what kind of the good image of the environment in our coastline in the Baltic Sea. It's unible. It's usually, I think it's reasonable, for example, organize common exhibition, Russian and Finnish exhibition, online exhibition, pictures, what we like in our countries on the coastline of the Baltic Sea. We show some positive message to each other. I think now we have too many negative information, negative pressure to the civil society, but who will give some way, what can we do together? And reasonable to think about positive cooperation, because we live in one common ecological region. It is our habitat, and reasonable. For example, I agree, maybe we will organize some common photo exhibition with Finnish people. It is not professional photo person. Some ecologist can take a picture and put together. And it's important to show that we are live in the common region, ecological region. It is one way. Another way, in the 1 month later, in the end of the July, we will organize, we say, moving on the bike environmental conference. 25 years ago, we started in Sosnovy Bor and we finished in Helsinki. And it was a very good example how to cooperate. In this year, we decided to go from Sosnovy Bor to Vyborg. It is a Russian-Finnish border, and maybe some Finnish colleagues support us, and we will organize communications during such kind of the moving on the bikes tour. And this is very short, brief ideas which I wanted to discuss with you and with your colleagues. And in the same time, we have close cooperation with indigenous people from the Russian side. And I know that they have the same contact with Finnish organizations, indigenous people. So general idea, to find some positive examples, positive way, like alternative of the total confrontation. And civil society can do it, I think. Thank you.
Really good ideas. We have to forward it to our peace organization, so we'll see what we can do. Fine.
Yeah, but this is really super fantastic. We continue the bike tour from St. Petersburg to Viborg, and then it stops, and then it continues in Lovisa to Helsinki, or whatever it is. I think we have to have this kind of imagination which Oleg and our friends in Russia have. I was recently in Nepal, where I met Soumya Dutta, and was impressed by the young environmental activists there, because they are not only opposing petrol cars and diesel cars, they are also opposing electric cars because they think biking is important, public transport. What I see here is that the bike tour can, of course, start in Kathmandu, and then it can continue in wherever it is, and finally end up wherever it is. Let's be imaginable. Although we see it's, of course, impossible to do it because we have all the technical problems when we try to use the Zoom, but we maybe can manage better and better, and then jump sort of from one bike trip to next one. And finally, it was so impressive in Kathmandu because there was a Chinese person there as well speaking. And what can you do? What is so much linking people together is when you talk about nature, and when you talk about countryside problems, and when you talk about indigenous people. And there is a global sustainability university in Hong Kong. And of course, we can understand that it's not an easy way to be able to have system critical discussions in Hong Kong. But they have been able to establish global meetings where especially the issues from Chiapas, from Royava, which we also have been here, and from indigenous people and traditional knowledge, which we addressed as well. So this whole idea from Oleg that we have to bring up culture issues, we have to bring up things that brings us together. And then we, of course, see that there is, of course, it's not perfectly fitting the agenda of the states, but they need us. We don't need them, but they need us. They need the local communities. They need the knowledge we can have. So I think this is a really, maybe it was also a little bit in the direction of what Soumya discussed. And then we have one in the audience here also.
Can I only fill in the cruel truth? The cruel truth is that the border between Finland and Russia is closed. So if you bike, you came to Viborg, but you can't come to Finland, and from Finland you can't go to Russia either. So that is.
Marianne, the key point is that they stop in Viborg, and then you continue.
Yeah. I can understand that. That is an idea. Then we show that here we are. Yeah.
Exactly.
Can't wait.
Okay, Nicholas. Yeah.
Oh, hello. My name is Nicholas Berg, and I will talk here tomorrow about different things, among them the global movement to expand legal rights from the domain of only human rights to the non-human world, that is rights of nature and ecocide legislation, etc. And when you talk about the Baltic area, I think of an idea that would be possible to gather around. It has been done in many places around the world, and that is the rights of the Baltic Sea, including the communities that are part of this area. So that would be interesting to continue that discussion. And the Sami people, the indigenous people here in Sweden, have endorsed Rights of Mother Earth, that declaration. So the indigenous people are also behind this. So that's one idea I would like to discuss further in the future. If you perhaps have any comment right now to that. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Janne Kortobius, and I'm active in this statement about peace and climate justice here in Sweden. We are having an initiative to try to get the climate organizations and peace organizations and other organizations behind the idea that we have to work together. The idea from Oleg about doing something about the Baltic Sea is a brilliant idea, and it should be possible, I think, to have a conference or something like that and discuss this with people from different countries and how that would be done best. We have to discuss where you place it or so on, but with some planning and time, it would, in my point of view, it wouldn't be impossible to do it. But the crucial point is how to break this new wall between Russia and the rest of Europe, because now we are seeing the exactly the same that we had before. My question is how is it possible to get through the wall to people in Russia, activists, and how is the possibility to get people who have left Russia and now are living in other countries? How are they afraid of being active? How is your contact with former activists and people who are against the Putin regime and this war? That's a question from my side. And a third thing is that we have discussed quite much about peace culture. What is that? How can we make it possible that we have another culture and the leadership and all this war machinery who are now having a culture of oppression and violence? How can we have an own peace culture? Yes.
I can say something if it's possible.
I'd like to ask at the same time, Marianne, a question the other way around. My name is Rolf. I'm in part out of the United States, but I live now in Sweden. And the question is, while there was a sense that it is Russia that is making it difficult to communicate to the West, I believe it's difficult, and the West is making it very difficult to communicate with the East because of what I would call an anti-Russian hysteria. And I think we have to be open in both directions and not in one direction. And the other speakers are welcome to address that, and I'll retreat and please continue. Please unmute yourselves, Oleg and Marianne.
Sorry, is it correct, my understanding, that I can say something?
Yeah? Yes, you can.
Colleagues, in last year, we organized together with the people from Norway the conference where participated representatives of the non-government organizations, regional parliamentarians from the not from Moscow, but from the region, from the Baltic region. Some businessmen, and Ingeborg Brains was the organizer of this conference. She is from Norway, and it was very important to involve the people not from Moscow, not from the capital, but the people who live in the same ecological region. I mean, if we will invite the regional politicians from St. Petersburg, Leningrad Oblast, if we will invite the people from the Russian Academy of Science who live in the same ecological region, and if we'll invite from the Finland, from other part of the Baltic Sea, the people who have the same status like the people from this region, it will be very different atmosphere for the discussion, because now dominate advertisement of the war, advertisement of the political pressure, but the people who live in one ecological region have very different vision, very different mentality. The idea is to involve not the people from capital, but from the ecological region and from the different social groups. And I think it was effective, and I'm sure that it will be possible from the Russian side. I invited some regional politicians, and they was ready to discuss and participate in such kind of the online conference. Thank you.
Can I try to answer also the questions here? First of all, I think that the possibilities to have discussions with Russians could be arranged via Zoom. So, for example, what came up here as an idea to have a conference, I think it will be better to arrange a conference on Zoom if we want Russians with us. So we can sit all as you are sitting there now in Sweden, and then somebody is coming from the east. But I think it would be, in a way, it would be simpler if we arrange a Zoom meeting, and also to continue with the ideas that Oleg had. Then I'm not sure that I did understand your question fully, Rolf. But you have to see what is the official policy of Finland today, and what is the official policy of Russia today. And then in another way, we in the peace movement and many of us who are opposing the Finnish policy, we don't have any problems to have contacts with the Russians. But because of the Finnish policy and the Russian policy, there is no official contacts at all. There is only these informal, which are also important, because I hope that the war will stop as soon as possible, and then we can continue as human beings as we did before. But you have to see the official. It's the official policy of Sweden also. No discussion with the Russians. Point. And that is the same in Finland, and that is the same in Russia also. And that is the hard things we have to solve. And this is we're solving when we have these meetings with peace-loving people in our countries, over the borders.
Somaya is leaving. Is it possible? No, he left. Okay. Okay. Yeah, a woman would be good to have. So please.
Hello, I'm Karen in the peace movement. I would like to give another perspective as well as yours. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been very interesting. I would like to address the Russophobia that Rolf started to talk about. I think we have to also try to change the way of our thinking. And one way is to see that the idea of deterrence does not work. We have the threat of nuclear destruction of the world and the climate destruction. We have to change. I think that conflict resolution is a very important answer to that, because if we use knowledge of conflict resolution in the security policy, then we can see that we have to see to everybody's perspective, and also the Russian perspective. And this has not been done in the West. And that is very important to change, to get rid of this Russophobia, to see that there is a reason behind the Ukrainian war, for one thing, and behind all wars. There are reasons, and we have to see the needs of all peoples. Thank you.
I like that.
My name is Stig Brokvist. My English is not so good, but I'll try. The problems we've talked about here, environment, war, military oppression, economic oppression, and so on, I think that it's necessary to get a solution, a real solution of all this problem. I think it's necessary to change the economic system totally. And the economic system has many aspects: economic growth, neoliberalism, that what decide the production. I think it's necessary that it will be the need and the limits of nature, the ecological limits, and not profit as today. Yes, thank you.
Can I say that I agree? I really agree what you said, but it's more or less undonable today, and we have been trying to do this, but I do agree with the idea to change the whole system. Yes.
We have had a lot of contributions. Dutta unfortunately had to leave us, and guess which hour he left us? 1:15 in the middle of the night. I see it as we have been having a very interesting conversation, but most importantly, amazingly, so that we even have some concrete proposals. One is, of course, what Marianne Laxén and are catching up on Oleg's proposal, a conference, Zoom conference. We still can do that. But I think this vision of Oleg that they will take this bike tour from Sosny Bor, I don't know if I can say it correctly. I guess that is the nuclear power plant close to St. Petersburg, and then to Viborg, and then one can continue on the Finnish side, and of course link it with Zoom contacts, etc., and have a nice bike tour, which is actually crossing the border in terms of symbolic things, and maybe not ending in Helsinki, but maybe it can continue even up to Falun, who knows. And maybe we could even, I'm quite for certain, actually, that my environmentalist friends in Kathmandu would like to join this bike tour. Not necessarily a big thing at all, but let's, as Oleg suggests, build friendship, build the kind of word we want now. And I think that we will have address here tomorrow very much when Nicholas will speak about how we can create communities, how we can create trust among each other, and do that by addressing our needs where we live, while at the same time building friendship cooperations. Of course, that doesn't mean that one should avoid addressing different kinds of oppressions, which I think Soumya Dutta made a very important comment. It's not only about military war, it's also about structural violence. And I was so impressed when I was in Kathmandu. There was a long, more than 1,000-kilometer march against loan sharks. We talk very brilliant words about the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, but that is a system which is in every village in Nepal. And it's horrible because these loan sharks have the judges and the courts in their hands, and they violate women. And I know that Marianne is very much into this in her whole life, been working on these kind of issues as well. And we saw this presentation for Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. With other words, they were really walking barefoot, long distance to protest, demanding justice for their cause. And we have to be able to link these local realities to these fine abbreviation, Bretton Woods institutions, etc. We have to oppose loan sharks, whether they are in the village or whether they are at the global level, and whether we are the loan sharks by demanding interest, which is impossible to pay for many countries, and the enormous debt burden that now is hanging on many countries, whether they are in war or whether they are having had the necessity of taking care of their health problems during the pandemic. In the bottom line is, if you die because of starvation or bombs, it's horrible, every of these things. And Marianne said it's impossible to address all the issues. But I thought the video we saw from the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom showed that this is a movement trying to do that. And that is what we are trying to do here as well. So I think that it is a step forward, and it's maybe interesting to see that when we go out and look into the world, we can get solutions from Russia or Nepal or wherever we want. It is so that the cooperation between the Nordic countries and Russia started very much by the music festival, the Peace Festival in Murmansk, 1989, when 2,000 young peace activists, well, there were some elderly as well, passed the border between Norway and Russia, more than had passed the border since the Second World War. And it was a big happy moment. And some of the people at that, they went into Antracita, I think it was the name of a small village in the Kola Peninsula. And after that, they started the energy saving project at the local school. And that energy saving project, I've heard, was then disseminated all over the Russian Federation. It became a UN day. And this shows the power of crossing west-east things. And today, that connection between the Norwegian and Russian environment movement is still there, and carried by young people who was not even born in 1989. So, in other words, I think this is a good step forward and concrete suggestions. We will document this, and we will contact Soumya Dutta if he has some kind of comment on this. And I think we will also try to bring in our contacts in Nepal. Soumya Dutta is actually from India, and maybe we can even have a Zoom not only with the Baltic region, but also maybe with the Himalayan region. Who knows? So if you want, you can have some last words, Marianne, and then finally Oleg.
the final word is thank you for this. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that we can continue.
Thank you, Tord. And when you spoke about the music festival, one time I listened music of the symphonical orchestra. It was Baltic Symphonical Orchestra. It was students from the musical academy, and they play music of the composer around the Baltic Sea. You see, it is so famous possibilities to listen music which is generated from the different part of the Baltic Sea, and this music play the students of from all countries around the Baltic Sea, and it was fantastical idea, and I'd like to listen maybe one time more. Thank you for the chance to speak now and today.
And thank you everyone for your patience. We are just movements and doing this voluntarily, but who is going to change the world? Is it the super professionals with their super money and their super fantastic everything? Or is it we, the people in common, who try to do our best? Thank you very much for everyone here in Falun and everyone else. Ciao.
Bye-bye.